I guess it's a real mess, isn't it? It wasn't supposed to go like that. I don't know what to tell you. I never think about the consequences of what I do until after it's done. But that's what happens when you cross the line. You pay for it. I guess it's time. I love you.
Imagine being tied up and shoved into a dark butcher's box right after witnessing your boyfriend's brutal execution by gunshot. Outside that box, one of the most horrific crimes in Mississippi history is taking place.
He said, Bubba, they cut Jeffrey up in 88-something pieces. They're looking for his body parts now.
Then he raped me and put me back in the box. I didn't think I was getting out of that box.
I never think about the consequences of what I do until after it's done. But that's what happens when you cross the line.
What happened on that dark night? And how could an 18-year-old girl single-handedly break through the iron cage, carving a bloody path to bring the villain to light? The year is 1996 in Houston, Texas. Jeffrey Wolfe is 21 years old and living a very happy life. His father, Pascal, remembers him fondly.
He was just a good kid. He loved dogs, he loved football, he loved motorcycles. He was an all-American guy, he really was.
On August 11th, Jeffrey brings home a surprise.
I was sitting at the house and they drove up and introduced her. That's my new girlfriend, Brooke. She was a beautiful young girl.
Young Brooke is 18 years old. They are in the honeymoon phase, planning a fun trip. They have no idea they are driving straight into a nightmare. To understand this nightmare, we must go back 6 years to 1990. Lori is getting married to a man named Gary Simmons. Gary works as a groundskeeper at a local child daycare center. He seems normal. Gary tells Lori he loves to write short stories. He keeps 50 binders in his office. One day, Lori opens one. What she finds is deeply unsettling. These are not normal stories. They are twisted fantasies about taking women captive, hurting them, and turning them into slaves.
I remember reading stories, and I don't know if he let me read that to gauge my reaction or my interest in what he had written. I told him, that's not pleasure, that's torture. And he says, well, these are my fantasies. He said, I have secrets you know nothing about.
Lori is horrified. Gary is not just writing. He is planning. The stories are detailed blueprints. He even writes very specific details about building a massive human cage.
One of the stories that Gary wrote was about a box, and it was for a person. I was in the kitchen when I heard this noise and this banging. I seen he's got this huge box.
Gary builds this exact massive metal box inside their home. The absolute horror is very real. He is preparing for something sinister. He is patiently waiting for the absolute perfect moment to strike. Jeffrey and Brooke are so deeply in love. They are young, vibrant, and full of life. They simply want to travel and enjoy their time together. They trust easily, unaware of the monster waiting for them. The contrast is chilling. On one side, you have a beautiful young couple full of hope. On the other side, you have a cold monster with 50 binders of pure evil. The trap is completely set. The stage is ready for tragedy. Gary sits on his porch in the dark, waiting for his victims to arrive. But what no one knew was, those horrifying scripts written on paper are soon about to become a terrifying reality painted in blood. It is August 12, 1996. Young Jeffrey and beautiful Brooke wake up early for a road trip. They drive 6 long hours from Texas to Moss Point, Mississippi. They are going to visit Gary Simmons.
It was a business trip. We were going to make a fun time out of it, but we were going to collect money.
When they finally arrive, the sun has completely set. The atmosphere feels instantly heavy. Brooke immediately senses a deep, chilling red flag.
I could tell something wasn't right. It was dark. And we pull up and there's not a porch light on. So that kind of was like, why don't he have the porch light on? You know, he knows we're coming. And that man, Gary Simmons, he was sitting on the steps. And he looked kind of creepy to me. But Jeff had told me that these were his friends, so I didn't question it.
Trusting her boyfriend, Brooke steps inside the house. Gary invites them in and offers a drink. Brooke takes a seat at the kitchen table, letting the men talk. The environment feels incredibly normal. There is absolutely zero tension in the air. She remembers, I could tell the conversation is friendly. There is no hostility, no tension, nothing. I mean, I thought that they were just going to have a discussion, and then it would be done. Then, the unthinkable happens.
I mean, I thought that they were just gonna have a discussion and then it would be done. That's when I heard the gunshots.
She says, that is when I heard the gunshots. Without any warning, Jeffrey is shot straight through his chest. Blood splatters wildly across the window blinds. His lifeless body crashes heavily onto the cold floor. Standing right behind him is a young man holding a smoking gun. Brooke is completely frozen in terror. She did not even know another person was hiding inside the house.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna die. I was so scared.
I gotta be honest with you. Reading through the timeline of how quickly a friendly conversation turned into an execution, it makes my stomach drop. There was zero warning. This young man with the gun just stands there, watching Jeffrey bleed out on the floor. Brooke is trapped in an unimaginable nightmare. Her boyfriend is dead, executed by a stranger. The air is thick with fear. I'm curious, how would you feel if someone you trusted blindly led you right into a slaughterhouse? The moment Jeffrey hits the floor, absolute chaos erupts. Gary Simmons does not even hesitate. He immediately lunges toward Brooke. She says, Gary hurries over to Brooke, grabs her in a bear hug, and carries her to the other room. He overpowers the terrified 18-year-old girl. Gary cruelly hog-ties her hands and feet together. He forcefully gags her so she cannot scream for help. Then, he locks her inside the massive metallic cage he built. The horror inside that cold, dark box is unimaginable. Brooke is completely alone with her worst fears. Then, Gary returns and pulls her out. He gives the terrified young girl a very chilling and truly sickening ultimatum.
And I was basically told how well I performed sexually, determined if I lived or if I died. Then he raped me and put me back in the box.
He cruelly locks her inside the pitch-black darkness once again, leaving her to pray for a miracle. She is now completely and utterly trapped. But who was the young man holding the gun? Who ruthlessly murdered Jeffrey? The answer is a betrayal so deep it will make your blood boil. The shooter is Timothy Milano. He is the younger brother of Lori. This monster is not just some random unknown killer. This is someone Jeffrey actually knew and trusted. The most infuriating part comes from Pascal, the heartbroken father of Jeffrey. Pascal had opened his own home to Timothy. This cold-blooded execution of a completely innocent friend is absolutely disgusting. Timothy took the life of a boy whose family treated him like a son. He shot him 9 times without a single ounce of mercy. The sheer betrayal is completely devastating and entirely unforgivable. While Brooke is desperately praying for her life inside that freezing butcher box, completely unaware of the gruesome reality outside, the nightmare was only just beginning. Because right outside her cold metal cage, Jeffrey and his remains were being treated in the most barbaric way in local state history. Miles away, Lori is consumed by worry and deep panic. Her younger brother Timothy had left many hours ago to meet with Gary, and he still has not returned home safely. At 3:30 in the morning, her anxiety peaks. She dials the landline of Gary's house. The phone rings and rings in the empty home, but nobody answers it. The ringing echoes into the dark. Inside the pitch-black metal cage, Brooke is exhausted, deeply wounded, and completely terrified. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the sound of the ringing telephone. She hears the automated voice of the answering machine echo through the silent room. In that exact moment, a spark of realization hits her. The killers are not inside the house. This is her only chance. Gathering every single ounce of her remaining strength, the 18-year-old girl begins to fight back. She twists and wiggles her body violently, slowly loosening the tight ropes, binding her wrists and ankles. Once her hands are finally free, she maneuvers onto her knees. Pressing her back against the heavy metal lid of the box, she pushes upward with all her might. The metal yields, and she breaks it open. She climbs out of the butcher box, finally breathing air. Looking around the pristine kitchen, her eyes lock onto a massive butcher knife resting on the table. She grabs it tightly, refusing to be a victim. Brooke later testified about her fierce determination during this terrifying moment. She fiercely stated, "If they were coming in when I was going out, I was going to gut them. Period. Because they were not going to kill me. I was not dying that day." Clutching the weapon, Brooke bursts out the front door and sprints wildly into the frigid night, desperately heading toward a neighbor's house. Just as she reaches the opposite yard, headlights pierce the darkness. Gary Simmons pulls his car back into the driveway. Brooke dives behind a nearby bush, her entire body trembling uncontrollably from the sheer cold and absolute terror. She watches, holding her breath, as Gary steps inside the house. Moments later, he runs back out, clearly panicked after discovering the empty metal box. He jumps back into his vehicle and speeds away into the dark. Brooke literally broke out of a metal box with her bare hands and grabbed a butcher knife. Drop your take in the comments. Am I missing something? Or is she one of the bravest survivors ever? The frantic neighbor immediately dials 911 for urgent emergency help. Law enforcement rushes to the scene. When deputies arrive, they find Brooke standing outside in absolute shock. The terrified 18-year-old is still tightly gripping the heavy butcher knife. She is completely hysterical, frantically screaming the same chilling words over and over again. "They shot him. They shot him." She points a trembling finger toward the dark, silent property directly across the street. Officers quickly approach the home, weapons drawn, expecting a gruesome massacre. They kick open the front door, but inside, they find something deeply unsettling. The house is completely immaculate and entirely silent. There is absolutely no trace of a struggle, no bodies, and not a single drop of blood anywhere in the pristine kitchen or living room. The only thing out of place is the massive metal box. But investigators know something horrific happened here. They step out the back door and begin searching the perimeter. The property sits right on the edge of a dark, murky bayou. As they cautiously approach the water, the sickening truth begins to surface. In one of the small wooden boats tied to the quiet dock, officers discover fresh drops of blood. Not far from there, a deputy stumbles across a heavy axe. The sharp blade is completely covered in fresh blood. A dedicated search and rescue team immediately begins scouring the dark, cold river. What they pull from the freezing water will haunt this community forever. Floating across the surface of the Bayou, recovery teams find 88 separate pieces of human remains. Jeffrey had been brutally butchered and discarded like garbage. What struck me the most was the sheer calculation. To dismember a human being into 88 pieces, it requires a level of sinister detachment that is just unimaginable. It is a blood-chilling level of pure evil. The sheer brutality required to swing an axe that many times is beyond terrifying. This young man drove 6 hours just to visit a friend, only to meet a gruesome fate at the hands of a true monster. The sheer cruelty leaves everyone absolutely speechless and heartbroken. Investigators immediately launch a massive manhunt for Gary Simmons, assuming he is running for his life in the shadows. They believe he is desperately fleeing across state lines, terrified of being caught by the police. The entire county is actively searching for him. They think he is hiding deep underground to survive. This is where the story takes a dark turn, because the cold-blooded killer is not hiding in fear. While law enforcement officers frantically search the entire state for a dangerous fugitive on the run, Gary Simmons is not hiding in the shadows. He has not crossed state lines to secretly escape justice. Instead, he casually walks directly into a busy public shopping mall in broad daylight, surrounded by completely unsuspecting shoppers and innocent families. The brutal killer pulls out a small video camera. He is incredibly calm and entirely unbothered. He records a twisted video message specifically intended for his former wife, Lori. He then packages this terrifying VHS tape and has it delivered directly to her daily workplace. When investigators finally review this official video evidence, the sheer arrogance of the killer is absolutely infuriating. Looking directly into the camera lens, Gary speaks with a sickening lack of emotion. He shows absolutely zero remorse for the innocent life he just brutally destroyed. The audacity to record a casual video message after butchering a 21-year-old kid. Does this make your blood boil too? That very same day, the massive manhunt comes to a sudden and deeply disturbing halt. Gary Simmons picks up a telephone and calls the local police department to officially turn himself in. When armed authorities finally arrive to arrest him, they realize a truly chilling fact. Gary is standing just a few short blocks away from the exact building where Lori works. He was lurking right outside her door, watching her world. Shortly after this chilling arrest, the second monster involved in this horrific nightmare decides to surrender. Timothy Milano walks into a local police station and turns himself over to the authorities. He officially confesses to pulling the deadly trigger that ended a completely innocent life. The brutal investigation officially leads to major criminal charges. Both Gary Simmons and Timothy Milano are formally indicted for capital murder. The two ruthless killers are finally locked inside cold steel cages, waiting to face a judge and a strict jury. The streets are finally safe from their terrifying madness, but the painful wait for true legal justice has only just begun. The grieving family now demands the absolute ultimate punishment for this horrific crime. They want to see these two men pay with their own lives. Everyone in the quiet community is absolutely shocked by the dark details slowly leaking into the press. The trial will surely be a massive public media spectacle, bringing every hidden secret directly into the blinding light. On August 25, 1997, exactly 1 year after the brutal murder, the highly anticipated trial finally begins. Brooke is the only living witness to the terrifying crime. The intense pressure inside that room is absolutely suffocating. Every eye in the building is fixed directly upon her fragile frame. The courageous 18-year-old remembers the horrifying gunshots, the dark steel walls, and the terrible silence. She steps inside the quiet courtroom to testify. Even from behind cold iron bars, Gary tried to hire an assassin to eliminate her. Walking to the witness stand, her entire body is violently shaking. She cannot control her intense trembling, but she refuses to back down. She bravely looks directly into the cold eyes of the monster who locked her inside that butcher box. She finds immense courage by looking at Jeffrey's grieving parents sitting nearby. She makes sure her innocent boyfriend did not die in vain. The jury listens to the horrifying evidence and reaches an incredibly fast decision. According to official court records, the final verdicts bring immense relief. Timothy Milano is sentenced to spend the rest of his natural life behind bars, receiving a strict sentence of life without parole. The mastermind, Gary Simmons, receives the ultimate punishment. The judge sentences him to the death penalty. Even with the killers locked away forever, Brooke cannot find total peace. For 27 long years, she completely changes her entire identity. She drastically cuts her blonde hair, dyes it dark, changes her legal name, and constantly runs in deep fear. The immense trauma dictates her hidden life. But true healing finally arrives in the year 2023, when Brooke agrees to bravely meet Lori face to face. It is an incredibly emotional moment. Lori looks deeply into the eyes of the woman who stopped the monster. Lori tells her, "I owe you a debt of gratitude. You are my hero. I have 4 children who are grown because of you. I am here today because of you." In that very moment, a heavy burden finally lifts. Brooke reclaims her stolen power. She finally realizes she is no longer a terrified victim. She is a powerful survivor of a violent crime. I couldn't stop thinking about how one 18-year-old girl's sheer will to live didn't just save her own life. It saved Lori and her children. Finally, after years of pain, justice was served and the family could begin to heal. What do you guys truly think? Does this ending bring you any sense of relief? Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time and support. If you found this case as shocking as I did, please leave your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime stories every single week.